Hello and welcome to Home Scientists. Today's class is on apparel and fashion design, which comes as the fourth unit in our UGC NET Home Science syllabus. I have chosen fashion as a subject today for my demo class because a lot of students have found it difficult to understand certain terminologies in textile and fashion. And while I was also preparing for my UGC, I also found this as a weak area. So hope today you are able to understand and follow me. All the best. Introduction. Now before we start, let's get familiar with the terms used in fashion. First is fashion. Fashion is a style accepted by a large group of people at any point of time. And style refers to distinct features that create an overall appearance. Now it is a combination of features that make it different from other garments. A style can be any particular design, shape, or even a type of apparel item. For example, a sari itself can be called as a style. Different saris can also be different styles. For example, a sari can be worn in different styles, in different regions. Sari can be made with different materials. Different designs can be included in the sari, etc. Now, how is it different from fashion? Now, fashion is time bound or it is related to time. For example, the fashion of saris now is different from how it was in the 90s. It is totally different from how it was in the 70s or the 80s. So, fashion is something related to time. Any style which is in trend now is the fashion. Another term is design. Design refers to a specific version of a style. For example, when you take kurta as a style, there may be different designs in a kurta. The increasing or decreasing its length, creating different neckline, varying its sleeves or any other change will give unlimited variety of designs to the kurta. By definition, a design is a composition of silhouette, which means the outline, color, texture, details, etc., which creates specific versions or variations of style. Now let's look at some kurta designs. Now the different designs in kurta create different styles. So we have studied about different terms such as fashion, style, design, and apparel. Now let's look on to some other terminologies. First one is haute couture. Haute couture is a French term. It means fine tailoring. It is a French word for fine tailoring. It is also called high fashion. They refer to new styles that are special in their overall appearance. It is manufactured in limited number and introduced to exclusive clientele of the fashion leaders. They are very expensive. They are characterized by the newness in the design, super fine quality fabric. They are perfect, made especially as per the client's size. So this is haute couture. This term you need to remember. The spelling is HAUTECOUTURE. Another term is mass fashion. If a high fashion gets wide acceptance, it becomes mass fashion. For example, a fashion which is introduced by a celebrity or a model, if it is gaining a lot of popularity, then it becomes a mass fashion. And now the garments will be sold in large quantities. It will be available at low prices. It will have high appeal and it will be in a simple and more wearable designs. Now another term is fad, F-A-D, fad. A fashion with a sudden burst of popularity is termed as a fad. Fad refers to styles that are extreme and exaggerated in their design. They gain sudden popularity in a small part of the population and then they quickly disappear from the fashion scene. For example, some years back in the Malayalam movie industry, there was a song called as Jimiki Kammal. And when that song was released, it was a big hit, it was viral. And after that, design of Jimiki earrings on the dresses have become very popular. It was available in all the shops, it was seen everywhere. But now it is nowhere to be seen. So it was a fashion fad because it was very short lived. It gained a lot of popularity initially, but then it went out of the scene. Another term is fashion classic. It is just opposite of the fad. It refers to styles that endure, that last a long time. A classic is characterized by simplicity of design, suitability to the clothing needs of a large group of population. They satisfy the basic need of clothing and they continue to be accepted by the population in varying degrees over an extended period of time. For example, the Kanchipuram saris for wedding is seen as a classic. It has been used for so long. So times classics can change in their look, but such changes are subtle as these changes are introduced mainly in the material, texture, certain design details, etc. For example, in the saris you can have certain times there will be beadwork or embroidery can be in fashion, etc. Another term is fashion trend. Fashion trend refers to the movement of a fashion into and through the marketplace. How long a fashion remains popular. A fashion trend refers to the general course of movement, direction, or flow that fashion in clothing follow. For example, certain fashions which can come, it can have an upward rise or it can move low, etc. Trend. The changes in design from one season to the next may be subtle, but they always follow a trend. Designers are the main force behind the introduction of any style, but its ultimate success depends on the consumer. They decide whether to accept or reject a particular style. Fashion forward is a term used to refer to new styles that gain acceptance in the industry. So, if anything is in fashion, it means it is fashion forward. Another term is avant garde. It is also a French term which refers to experimental and shocking fashions. Now, these designs or these avant garde are usually worn by celebrities in the red carpet for Met Gala events and things like that. They are only seen in the ramp, and hardly people accept it or hardly people adopt these styles. They are because they are very extreme fashions. They give a lot of popularity to the designer and the model, but the consumers don't adopt it. Now let's see what is the fashion cycle. The fashion cycle is a period of time or lifespan during which the fashion exists. For every fashion there is a fashion life cycle. Initially there is the fashion is introduced, it gets popular, then it goes into the peak stage and then there is a decline and then it goes out of fashion. So when a customer purchases and wears a certain style, that style is considered accepted. Now, the acceptance leads to the style becoming a fashion. Now, fashions do not always survive, even sometimes some fashions don't even survive a year. Now, let's look at the stages of the fashion cycle. Now, fashion moves through different stages during its cycle of existence. Not only design, but certain small features can also go through these cycles, such as certain colors can be in trend, certain texture, certain fabric. For example, the jute fabric can be in fashion, etc. Now, the stages are first the introduction, which is the beginning of the new style or the trend. Rise is the second stage, which means is a gain in popularity and familiarity. And the third is the culmination or the peak stage, which is the highest point. Now, the fourth stage is decline or the end of a style or a trend. And the last is obsolescence, which means it is totally out of the picture. Now, let's look at each of these stages in detail. First is the introduction stage. Now, in this stage, the designs are first previewed during fashion weeks or major design centers. New styles, colors, or textures are introduced, and then it begins an upward slope. Initially, the celebrities or models may be wearing it, and then limited number of people accept them. The fashion leaders are the ones who wear these styles. They are at high prices and they will be produced in small quantities in this stage. Now, in the next stage, that is the rise stage, the manufacturers will copy these designer clothes and will reproduce the same styles as the apparel, and then the cost will reduce. In the initial incline, fashions are accepted by more and more people because they can afford them, and then mass production will happen, and which reduces the price of the fashion, and more sales will result. Now at the peak stage, it reaches top of the hill. That is, fashion is very popular and it's extremely accepted. It's found everywhere. Mass production will lead to prices being very low. It can survive long if the fashion becomes a classic. Now, updating or adding new details of design, color, or texture will happen in this stage. Now, the next is the decline stage. Now, the consumer demand starts decreasing. It goes down the slope slowly. Now, fashion items will have saturated the market. It is seen everywhere. People get tired of it and they don't want to pay a high price for this. Now, fashion retailers will also mark down the price of the merchandise. Now, the last stage is the obsolescence. This is the end of the fashion cycle, the bottom of the hill. The consumers are no longer interested in this fashion and they look for new looks or new fashions. The price of the fashion will be very low and the consumers may not be interested in buying it. Now, all fashions follow the life cycle pattern, but it varies with each fashion. It is very difficult for fashion marketers to predict the lifespan. Some may remain for very little period as a fad, or some can remain very long and it becomes a classic. The length of the time is determined by the consumer's willingness to accept the fashion. Now, the fashion movement. Fashion movement refers to the ongoing motions of fashion through the fashion life cycle. Lot of factors influence this. Economic, social, etc. can influence the consumer interest in fashion. Now let's look at some other terms. One is fashion leader. Now, who is a fashion leader? Fashion leader means it's a trendsetter or individuals who are the first to wear new styles, after which the fashion is adopted by the general public. Usually, they are high profile people who get a lot of media attention, mostly film stars, royal people, or very extremely wealthy people. Media celebrities. They are the ones who usually introduce new styles. Now, fashion consumers are also of different types. The first group is the innovators. These individuals adopt new technology or ideas simply because they are new. They tend to take a lot of risks and they are more venturesome. These are usually the people who are at the forefront of fashion, like Kim Kardashian, who is always into new fashions and new looks. Now, the next group is the early adopters. This group tends to create opinion which propel trends. They are mostly consumers involved in the fashion industry, such as the models, people working in for fashion magazines, etc. They are more concerned about their reputation of being ahead of the curve. They need to adopt the fashion before the others. Now, the third is the early majority. Now, this group makes decision based on their comfort and utility. They give more importance to their comfort than the coolness of it or being ahead of the curve. Now, the next group is the late majority. They are more cautious. They need more hand holding before they can adopt any new trend. Now, the last group is the laggards. This group is extremely slow to adopt any new ideas or technology. They tend to adopt only when they are forced to or because everybody else has already done it. Now, let's move on to certain fashion theories. Now, the first one is trickle down theory. Now, this is a hypothetical theory. It states that the movement of fashion starts at the top with consumers of high socio-economic status and moves down to the general public. It assumes that the highest fashions or the couture, luxury, design labels are first adopted by people or consumers of high socio-economic status. That is about the wealthy people, and then they are moved down. The move it goes down to the early adopters, the independent shops, then goes to the high streets or the masses, it then goes down to the masses. Now the fashion leader, so the trickle down theory actually um, points out to certain terms like fashion leaders. So these are there will be fashion leaders who are highly visible elite, served as models for lower class. So these people are the ones who actually adopt the fashion initially, and they will be the leaders of it. Now the direction is it is moving from the high socio-economic strata to the lower strata. So down from the elite class to the working class. That is how the trickle down theory works. Now the change of speed refers to how quickly the lower class could obtain and copy the elite, or when the people can adopt the fashion. All the people can actually adopt that fashion. Dynamics of change refers to the drive for differentiation and imitation. So certain times initially the designer labels, all the big brands will be doing this fashion, and then the cheaper mass retail stores will copy that, it imitate it, and it becomes really common. Now the next theory is trickle up theory. Now there are certain fashions which have actually gone from the low income groups to the higher income groups. So this hypothesis that states that the movement of fashion starts with consumers on lower income levels and then moves to the consumers with higher income. So the trickle up theory suggests that styles are adopted from the streets or the low income groups, and then those same styles flow to the upper income groups and designers, where it becomes a trend that become known worldwide. So there have been very many different examples. For example, the jeans, the denim clothing initially was worn by the working class. Now athletic apparel styles during the 1970s and 80s, then we can see the ripped jeans, leather jackets, punk style, the what do you say, the spike hairstyles, etc., were all by the streets. I mean, they were actually initially introduced in the streets, and then they moved up to the higher economic strata. Now comes the trickle across theory. This is a hypothesis that states that fashion acceptance begins among several socio-economic classes at the same time, because there are fashion leaders in all the groups. Now, it was first developed in the late 1950s. The trickle across theory assumes that fashion moves across different socio-economic levels relatively rapidly. There is no distinct time frame for it to trickle down or trickle up. So the clothing styles do not trickle down but appear at all price points at approximately the same time. So you can see that there may be certain brands which sell the same identical things at the same with different prices ranges. Like for example, a jacket can be seen in the branded shops for very high rate, and you can also see it in the streets for very cheap price. So this is a trickle across theory. It is seen in different stages or different socio-economic strata at the same time. So the features are mass production. Newest looks are available very quickly. As soon as the it is introduced, the fashion is introduced, all the retailers start to manufacture it, and it is available at different price ranges. It is because of the fast-paced communication, mass media, etc. The style information is available to all at the same time, and each social group has their own fashion leaders. Another term is fashion forecasting. Foreseeing fashion trends, what is the future has in hold for us. So it is kind of difficult because it's very difficult to completely accurately forecast what will be in fashion a year or two later. So foreseeing fashion trends and predicting it early enough to allow time for production to meet the consumer demand is very important. Now because of the time required for textile design and development, the textile segment leads in recognizing the fashion directions. Now the textile designers have to work at least 1.5 years ahead of the schedule for the products to hit the market. Now the accurate forecasting makes it possible for the fashion industry segments to prepare for and meet the consumer demands with products that will be accepted and purchased.
The keen worldwide competition increases the importance of accurate trend identification. So, it is very important for the designers and also for the textile industry to foresee what is in what will be in fashion, so that they can meet the consumer demands. Now, who is involved in these forecasting? Fashion staffs employed by the textile producers, big brands, highly skilled consultants working for these fashion services, then magazines, then social media, fashion events, all these things are helpful in forecasting new trends. What are the activities involved in fashion forecasting? Now, fashion forecasting is actually about making and reporting predictions of what will be fashionable in the coming years or coming months. So they have to coordinate information from different industries, like from the textile industry, like the fiber, yarn, apparel companies, textile shows, fashion markets, etc. They have to analyze the fashion media, visit world's fashion centers, observe fashion leaders, models, etc. And they have to also conduct market research. They get their information from different publications, from magazines, websites, newspapers, and there are certain magazines and social media sites which are exclusively for fashion. The Teen, the Vogue, Glamour, all these are exclusively for fashion information. There are also nowadays social media like Instagram is also where a lot of influencers are also there who predict fashion. Now, what are the factors affecting fashion? There are various factors that affect fashion, like the economic, social, political, and technological. So, coming to economic factors. Now, we know that money is involved in everything. The growth of fashion demand in a country is dependent on its economic development. This is because economic development results in increased purchasing power, technological advancements, and a healthy population. So, for a fashion to survive, the consumer should have income in his hand, they should have purchasing power, the population should be stable, and there also should be technological advances. Then only a fashion can sustain. Political factors are also very important in fashion, because a number of political factors affect the clothing industry, such as the labor laws, provision of subsidies. For example, there is a promotion of handloom which was done in 2022. You can see our finance minister in a handloom sari because of for the need for promotion of handloom. So you can see that there are even politics play an important role in fashion. Now, technological factors. Now, the development in textiles is highly influenced by technology, because there will be a lot of innovative methods of production. There will be mass production, retailing industry. All these things are also influenced by technology. So, this is all about different terminologies in fashion. Hope you understood and were able to follow me. Thank you.